I'm Al Lewis, News Radio 610 WIOD. As promised, front coming in, cooler weather by the weekend, and a 40-50% chance of a couple of showers, thunderstorms this morning, and partly cloudy, probably late morning into the afternoon. A west breeze and a high of 77. Tonight, settling back to about 55. Interior a little cooler. Clouds, sun tomorrow, upper 60s, with 40s tomorrow night into Sunday morning. Mix of clouds and sun Sunday with a high of 72. With updates around the clock on South Florida's Severe Weather Station. I'm a Weather Channel's race staging on News Radio 610 WIOD.
This report is sponsored by Unbound.org. Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at Unbound.org.
Heard the good news about COVID-19 vaccines? Yeah, they're coming, but you can do a lot more than just wait. See, you have the power to help slow the spread. Actually, you could be a real difference maker and protect your family and loved ones, too. Here's how. Watch your distance. Stay at least 6 feet away from folks you don't live with. And it's risky to be indoors with them, too, no matter how far apart you are. And, of course, avoid crowds. Also, wear a mask. CDC reports that masks protect both the person wearing them and the folks around them from particles that carry the virus. And wash your hands, using soap and water for 20 seconds, and do it frequently. Watch your distance, wear a mask, and wash your hands. Simple, effective, and along with vaccines, they're how you can make a big difference.
Learn more about vaccines at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword HOPE to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's HOPE to 200-200.
Biden is making another speech. He says his cabinet's going to have as many women as men and the most minorities ever. Whether it does or not, it will. He said it. His intentions are good. Mission accomplished. There won't be any studies. There won't be any analyses. There won't be any divide and follow through. There will just be the assumption that he meant it and that his intentions were honorable. He's a great guy. And greetings and welcome back, Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EID microphone.
From sunny South
Friday.
It's Open Line Friday.
Exactly right. You'll plug on through at our final big, busy broadcast hour. Telephone number 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Let me resume with the Ben Domenech piece here. In all of my years covering the Tea Party, I never saw them be rude to a cop, even by accident. They were upper middle class people, drove up in SUVs. They had no designs on destruction or occupation. Their taxes paid for that park they were in, so they would clean up after themselves. They took pride in it, that they weren't like the dirty, filthy leftists who left graffiti and literal crap on the ground. So, of course, it was these people who were absolutely marauded by the media. Their shouting at politicians, confined, of course, to town halls, was an act of political sabotage that threatened everything we hold dear. Occupy Wall Street could go dump on the ground and shout at everybody and just make general mayhem, and they were praised for being political activists. Tea Party people go to town halls and participate in the political process, and they were accused of political sabotage. Mediocre politician Joe Biden literally called Tea Party activists terrorists. Yeah, Biden can be a nice guy, but he's also kind of an asshole that way. That's Delaware for you. Writes Mr. Dominich. Politics is interesting in America. There is a repeated pattern that emerges when you look into it. Certain factors and elements rise up, and the media lies about them aggressively. They frame the new emerging development as something it isn't, as the most extreme version of what it could be. And then the call engenders a response. The very thing the media frames this development as comes to fruition as a new and more virulent form. And this actually happened. It absolutely happened in response to the 2012 election. As I said a few years ago about Democrat attacks on the misogyny and the heartlessness of Mitt Romney, if you cry wolf about extremism long enough, you're going to someday lack the vocabulary when the actual beast shows up. The rise of Donald Trump is a piece of that. A takeover of the Republican Party by a politician who represents everything the media has framed a cliched view of the party as for decades. A rich, old, white racist who likes to fire people. Yeah, so suck on that. Go write 1,000,000 pieces. They don't care. What happened yesterday, meaning Wednesday, the Capitol, didn't depress me the way it seemed to depress other people. Maybe that's because I don't view the institution of the Capitol as sacred the way others do. As a former staffer in that building, I've known too many stories about the nooks and crannies where Ted Kennedy did stuff to women to get too verklempt about it, and the invaders stayed inside the velvet ropes in Statuary Hall. That's what I actually care about. But it is disturbing for a lot of reasons. Two in particular stick out. The first is a comment from an apolitical friend who wandered into the room where the roiling crowd was on the screen in the early afternoon yesterday. Is that Black Lives Matter? No, it's not, but also it is. An apolitical viewer of the summer of 2020 would learn one distinct lesson. If you want to be heard, if you want to be listened to, you need to go into the streets. You need to make a ruckus. You need to set things on fire. You need to tear down icons of America. This disrespect will be welcomed. It will be hailed. It will be supported if your cause is just and if your motives are righteous as determined by the media. Just about everybody who showed up on Capitol Hill yesterday believed that about why they were there. The only difference between the horned man standing in the Senate chair and the smiling man hauling the speaker's podium out the door, and the fellow who attempted to tear down Andrew Jackson's statue of the criminal who set fire to St. John's Church, is a matter of jersey color, meaning are you a Republican or Democrat? And if you're Democrat, you're great. You can get away with whatever destruction you want. You can march into that Capitol and you can tear it apart. You can take statues out. You can rip them to shreds. And you're praised. If you're Republican and show up in that building and do anything but sneeze at something, you are a reprobate criminal. The second is that blaming this on Trump isn't just too simplistic. It's whistling past the graveyard of our norms. Of course he egged on his crowd to go to the Capitol and be loud and irritating. But he didn't tell them to break down doors and crash the gates. And he didn't need to. Blaming this on Trump assumes this type of attitude will go away when Trump does. Well, that's way too easy. It's wishful thinking. The iconoclasm of the right is a real development, and it is here to stay. You'll wish for the old man in the tricorn hat waving a Cato Constitution when you see the new right blasting statues with graffiti. Meaning, you ain't seen nothing yet. When Trump's gone and is not the abject leader of this movement, you aren't going to believe what these people turn into. And he's excited about it. Don't misunderstand. The crowd on Wednesday was not a Tea Party crowd. They brought their folding chairs and their canes. They drove more than they flew. They spat their dip on the ground. They peed on the trees. And they didn't just disrespect the cops guarding the Capitol, they crushed past them. Capitol Police are fine people. They're nice and generally accommodating, but they're also the TSA of Capitol Hill. They're mostly used to telling people to go back and get their badge. They're not deal with a security issue. They rarely train. Most of them would fail a basic fitness test, but that's understandable because what's typically required of them is not a major security conflagration, but removing some loud code pink lady from a hearing or grabbing a jumper from the gallery. The norms of politics prevent them from having to be more aggressive. Now, let me get to the last two paragraphs because it's actually kind of funny. You end at the beginning. I'm sorry, you begin at the ending. This is what's going to happen next. This is what everybody is guessing, predicting, and being concerned about. Ben Domenech, what will happen next is obvious. A total crushing anti-free speech effort that treats Trump-supporting groups like Branch Davidians. That's going to happen next. You remember the Branch Davidians? Where were the Branch Davidians dealt with? Do you remember? That's right, in Waco, Texas. The Branch Davidian complex. Who was the guy that ran the Branch Davidians? David Koresh. Who was it that launched the invasion? It was Janet El Reno, the Attorney General of the United States. She burned them to the ground. Why? Well, supposedly they were doing something horrible to children in there. So she launched tanks and any number of heavy artillery instruments at the Branch Davidian complex in Waco, Texas, and murdered a bunch of people. That's what Domenech thinks is heading next. A total crushing anti-free speech effort that treats Trump-supporting groups like the Branch Davidians. An effort to restore the fundamentally unserious neocons as the voice of reason in the room. Well, let's attach some names to that. What Domenech is suggesting here is that the Washington establishment will bring back to life people like Bill Kristol and David Brooks. You pick whoever your neocons are, they will be presented by the American left as the voice of reason, much like when Barack Hussein Obama had a pre-inauguration dinner, or maybe shortly after he was inaugurated, dinner with chosen conservatives in Washington. They were to be identified as the reasonable conservatives, and they were David Brooks and George Will and Bill Kristol, and that's where we got the comment about, man, look at the crease in Obama's slacks. He's going to be a great president. So Domenech is saying we face a replay of the Washington establishment naming acceptable conservatives who are going to just be a bunch of foils. We will witness a hardening